Greetings. This is a quick overview of setting up and using multiple desktops in Yosemite. I like to use multiple desktops in Yosemite because it allows me to focus on what I'm doing, the work I'm doing, or my focus activity in the foreground, bring it and keep it in the foreground, while other applications such as maybe my communications applications or my music applications such as Spotify, I like to have music playing in the background while I'm working, can do exactly that, run in the background. So it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind, and my mind can focus on my primary task or work that needs to be done. So to to first even see and launch the number of desktops that you have to push the F3, that is the F3 button, F as in France, on your keyboard. And you'll notice that in my case, I have 4 different desktops or spaces really that I can work with. I also am recording this with Screencast-O-Matic, which shows up on this little icon on the left hand side. Isn't that interesting? So I'm currently in desktop 2, which I've deliberately left blank so that you can see the contrast between having different applications open in the other desktops. Here's a quick rundown. Desktop 1 is sort of my browsing area. It's where I open Safari and Chrome if I'm working with Google Hangout or doing some other very Google specific work. That seems to work more seamlessly if I've got Chrome launched and working. My second desktop is sort of what I call my workspace. If I'm writing an article in Word or Scrivener, or if I'm creating a PowerPoint presentation, this is where I would use and open and launch and use those applications. So it's really that focused workspace. Desktop 3 is my communications hub. So Viber, Skype, Adium, Messages, Mail, all of those applications are usually up and running, not necessarily all at the same time, but they're up and running as needed and run in the background if I'm working on any of these other desktops. Finally, desktop 4 is my media hub, and it's basically just Spotify when I'm listening to music in the background, and iTunes when I need to sync my iOS devices and conduct backups and so forth. So 4 different desktop spaces, so to speak, that do different things for me. And you can notice that I can delete any of these with the X at any given point in time. No, I'm not about to delete one of my desktops. I can also move them around, but I cannot or have not found a way to rename them just yet. And you'll also notice this sort of band on top that's a little darker than this main desktop space, and that is also a very subtle indicator that you're sort of in your manage my spaces, my desktop space right now, rather than your primary desktop. How do you add a desktop? So if you notice, as I move my cursor toward the right-hand side, extreme right-hand side, a new little desktop pops up with a little plus icon, and that's all you do. Move your cursor over to the right-hand side, click on the plus icon, and voila. You can keep doing this to add as many desktops as you want. I really don't have a use for desktop 5, so I'm going to go ahead and delete it, but you get the idea. Scroll over, click on the plus, add, and delete. Well, great, you have these desktops, but how do you really use them or benefit with them? And the nice little trick there is that you can dictate which application opens in which particular desktop. Now I'm going to go back to desktop 1 and use another application called Alfred to launch Word and watch what happens. Boom. You saw my screen sort of slide into desktop 2, which is where Word opens. Basically, I have indicated that Word should always open in desktop 2. So no matter which desktop I'm in at any given point in time, the application will open in the desktop that has been prescribed for it. And the way I do this is, first I make sure the application is in the right desktop. So the very first time I had to open Word and make sure it was in desktop 2. And once it's there, I right click on the W icon, in this case W for Word, select options and say this desktop. And that's all it takes to enable an application to open in a particular desktop. Now, how do I make sure an application is in a particular desktop? You simply just drag it to whichever desktop you want it to be in. So I'm going to leave it in desktop 2. That's really all it takes to set up multiple desktops and assign different applications to them. And you really declutter your space. You're able to focus much better on what you need to be working on primarily while everything else recedes to the background. I hope you found this little overview useful. Feel free to leave me any comments if you so desire. Thank you very much for your attention.